Dear Mythbusters, I've been seeing online a lot of people, mostly Shaolin monks, throwing needles through panes of glass.
Oh yeah, I've seen this. The monks are standing fairly close to the glass, maybe 3 or 4 feet away, and they have these fairly heavy needles. They throw them in the glass without shattering it.
Do they really say,
No, I just made that up.
All right, well, they want to know, is this an actual occurrence, or is this just special effects?
According to the internet, this myth's a monk's slam dunk, as the needle somehow penetrates the glass without causing it to shatter. But is this just Shaolin shenanigans?
Okay, in watching the video, it looks like the needle is pretty chunky, but what about the glass?
It's kind of hard to tell. Why don't we do this? Let's just take regular window glass, which is about 1/8 inch thick, and we just start throwing needles at it, and we'll see if we can punch a hole through it.
Sounds great, and depending on what we get, we can either ramp up the speed of the needle or use thinner glass. Now in this myth, we see what appears to be a Shaolin monk throwing a needle, such as this one, through a piece of glass. And we've got some leftover 1/8 inch window glass from a previous experiment. You guys okay? Everybody okay? We've also got our high-speed scale to tell us how fast we're throwing. But before we actually throw needles at glass, we've set up our dartboard just to see what we're going to get.
So first up, the guys are stepping up to the practice plate.
Generally demonstrating some sort of physical feat on camera is something I dread, mostly because I lack any sort of athletic skill, coordination, or grace. But maybe throwing needles will be my thing, because I have spent some time with the dartboard.
And sure enough, Carrie's got this one covered. Because other than the odd bounce back,
Ow!
she's hitting the board first time, every time.
Eh? Nobody saw it?
And when Grant and Tori step up to the plate, they too find that embedding the board is surprisingly simple. Will the penetration without shatteration be as straightforward?
So my top speed was 28 miles an hour. Grant's was 38 and Tori's was 47. Now we're moving on to glass. And though I think speed's going to be a major factor, we also want to give this a go, because this is really fun.
Indeed it is. And first up is the lady herself.
Putting a hole in 1/8 inch glass.
Let's see if you can punch a hole through it with the needle. Oh, looks like the window got its revenge. This seems a little more dangerous than I thought. Yeah.
Why? Because he's bleeding?
Yeah.
Despite a 10-mile-an-hour increase on Carrie, Grant's not getting any penetration satisfaction. Enter Tori. He has a significant and sizable 40% more kinetic energy to bring to the party.
Whoa!
Dude, you're making good contact.
But it still barely glanced the glass. Despite every effort, the only thing busted around here is the myth. But all is not lost.
So far, we have not been able to get a single needle to fly through the glass. I just don't think we're throwing these needles fast enough. I mean, we're hitting the glass, and we're hitting it correctly. The problem is the speed of the needle. We need to bring somebody in who can throw objects much faster than us. I think we need to bring in a professional baseball pitcher.
And not just any baseball pitcher, but one of the best in the business. Later, go on Mythbusters. Adam and Jamie ramp it down to science it up.
The big problem here is traction.
And did we mention Matt Cain's stopping by?
Oh my God, I can't believe this.
So we've been trying to throw a needle through a sheet of glass. Now we started with 1/8 inch glass, and perfected our technique, slowly increased our speeds, and so far, we haven't had any success.
So we need to ramp up the velocity of our needles. So we have brought in one of the fastest pitchers in the world of baseball. He is a giant in the field. And in fact, he is one of 23 who's ever pitched a perfect game in the history of baseball. He is none other than Matt Cain. Oh my God, I cannot believe this.
If anyone can take aim at this myth, it's San Francisco Giants superstar pitcher, Matt Cain. Not only does he have a frighteningly fast fastball, but his perfect game, striking out 14 batters on the way to a 10-zip win, placed him alongside the greatest ever. He's a living legend.
But first, we're going to find out how fast he can throw. So we're going to have a little matchup. Tori's going to throw a baseball, then Matt Cain's going to throw a baseball. I'm going to measure it with the speed gun, and then we're all going to laugh at Tori.
Yep, to prove they've got the best in the business,
Gotta warm up a little bit here.
Tori and Matt are going to have a little head-to-head.
Hey, Matt. All right, now, just to warn you, I played a little Little League growing up, so let me just show you how I do it.
Go, Dory!
Wow, that was scorching hot.
A scorching hot 48 miles an hour.
All right, so what do you think? You guys got a shot?
No.
Yeah, my money's on Matt.
Oh my God! All right, what did he get?
Do you want me to say this out loud, or is this going to diminish you as a man? How do you feel about 92?
Wow! All right, 92. Well, I think you're ready to start throwing needles.
I think we can move on.
You've learned well.
I think Matt Cain is the man for the job. I mean, he doubled the speed at which Tori could throw. So, for the myth, we're going to move on to 1/8 inch glass. Then after that, if it doesn't work, 1/16 inch. If that doesn't work, we're going to go on to antique glass, which is only 1/32 inch. This might give some validity to the myth. I mean, the man's got a cannon for an arm.
And once the cannon's got his ammunition, it's all systems throw.
It looks like it's chipping.
Yeah, I think that was my best shot right there.
Why don't we check the high speed and see how fast you're throwing? But it looks like it's hitting really well. Yeah. And it's still not punching a hole.
Incredibly, the high speed reveals that Matt's best throw peaked at 105 miles an hour, equaling the fastest baseball pitch ever recorded.
Okay, Matt is throwing these needles so much harder than we were. I mean, just to illustrate the point, as I was picking them up, I noticed they're bent. That just shows how much energy is actually going into that needle and trying to penetrate that glass.
But despite the speed and power, the 1/8 inch glass holds firm until...
I wish that had been the one.
Oh my God!
Wow is right. With the reduced mass of the needle compared to a baseball, Matt manages to unleash a 113 miles an hour missile that takes a chip off the old block, but still fails to fly through, which means it's time to trim the fat.
Okay, so this is 1/16 inch glass. Now, because it's thinner, it reduces the amount of energy required to punch through. But the trade-off is that instead of punching a hole through it, it may shatter completely.
All right, Matt, remember all your Shaolin training. I want you to just punch a hole right through that glass.
Once again, Matt launches needle after needle with only a divot for his efforts.
That was a good one.
That sounded good.
Did he leave a little nick?
Yeah.
But on throw 8, there's finally a shatter to celebrate.
What the heck happened there?
The needle shattered.
Needle shattered. You shattered the needle. You are a Shaolin monk.
Amazingly, Matt has busted the steel needle and left the glass utterly untouched, which doesn't bode well for the myth.
Okay, so Matt couldn't break the 1/16 inch glass. We're moving on to 1/32. Now, this is actually hard to find. You have to find this at an antique store. It's very thin glass. If he can make it through here, I think it's still plausible.
Indeed, but the problem here is that this glass is so fragile, it may sooner get smashed than speared.
You broke the glass with a needle. That's insane.
Yes, but it didn't exactly happen like the monk did in the video. It's just the glass is so fragile.
So at this point, it doesn't go through, it just smashes the glass.
Yeah. In order for us to get the needle to punch a clean hole, we're going to have to get these needles traveling a lot faster.
All right, well, this is busted for a human, but amazing achievement.
Nice work.
Pretty fun.
Fun is right. Matt threw a medley of mini missiles, but could never match the viral video. Having the needle pass through the glass, which is left otherwise intact, has proved impossible, even for this perfect pitcher.
Look, we have no idea what they used in the video. We don't know if they used real glass, if that was a real needle. But here's what we do know. We're going to find out what it takes to punch a hole in a sheet of glass without shattering it.
Want to know why we did what we did and didn't do what we didn't do? Check out the after show. Log on to discovery.com/Mythbusters after show.
Carrie, Tori, and Grant have thrown and danced their way through the request fest. But one busted myth's about to get a twist in the tail.
I think we got some unfinished business with this whole needle throwing myth.
What do you mean?
I say we take a pellet gun, modify it, and see how fast we can get that needle going, and then see what happens.
I love it. Let's do it. We're trying to replicate what we saw on the internet, a Shaolin monk throwing a needle through a pane of glass with a clean hole. We started out with just manpower. Didn't work. Then we moved up to Superman power and used Matt Cain, who has the fastest arm in the West. So now, we're going to try something with even more power. An air rifle.
Yep, an air rifle. As his chaos maker of choice, it's got Tory written all over it.
Now, I've shot out a lot of windows with these, but I've never shot one out with a needle. I never thought of this before, but there is a problem. The needle is very thin. It's not the same diameter as the barrel of the gun. So I'm going to have to use this sabot to capture the air pressure to shoot the needle down towards the glass.
With the rifle capable of shooting at 180 miles an hour, the 1/8-inch glass and the Myth is facing its final firing squad.
This is 1/8-inch glass with the needle and air rifle. Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
Ooh. Let's see what that did. That looked like a nice hit.
Wow. But no cigar. A good point-first contact and no penetration. But with a speed of 140 miles an hour, the team still has a chance to further pump up their chances. Because with an extra pump or two comes more power.
Is it a divot?
Yeah. It is.
This time the needle rockets out at 160 miles an hour. But again, no penetration. However, the divot damage is promising. So for the final time, Tory cranks the gun to the max. 180 miles an hour.
1.
That looked good!
It punched a perfect hole just like the Shaolin monk did.
Dude, so that's what it takes. Incredible speed.
Incredible speed indeed. A full 70 miles an hour faster than Matt the Cannon Cain's best throw was the magic number. And with the physics laid bare, the team suspects an alternative technique was used. It's not a hoax, but it seems there's more than meets the eye to this mythical monk magic.
I'm going to say this is busted still, because I just don't think that any human is going to be able to do that.
Totally busted.
Absolutely busted.
Now, the myth that you could throw a needle through a pane of glass is totally busted. We tried everything we could to get this to happen. We threw it ourselves, we even brought in a professional pitcher, and we changed the thickness of the glass, and we could still not get a perfect punch hole. Finally, after using an air rifle, we were able to punch a perfect hole. But remember, that's getting a needle to travel at almost 200 miles an hour. No matter how you look at this one, it is busted. Let's just hope the Shaolin monks don't have cable.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to